Thank you for joining us, and welcome to our first webinar in our new series on transition and life-changing events. Today's episode is an introduction and a look at planning process for going through such transitions. I'm Matt Kousinen from Ellis & Associates Wealth Management, and I will be moderating our session with William Ellis and Gregory Lawrence as our presenters. This episode should last about 15 minutes, and if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box during the session, and we will address them in the time allotted at the end. As always, we'll post a recording of this session on our website where you can view it any time. You can also view our previous webinar episodes on our website in our content library. Our webinar today has three sections. The first is an introduction to transition and life-changing events. The second is a section on planning based on experience. And the final section is a look at the importance of working with professionals. William, can you take us through the most common transitions that we see with our clients?
Well, thanks, Matt. Well, as we all know, life is not a straight line going up and toward the right. There are bumps along the way. In life, we face events. Many of them we look forward to, and others we don't. We most often get introduced to clients when they're going through a life transition because of our experience and expertise, and because of our network of professionals that involve us to assist their clients through periods of change. And some of those might be, the common ones are retirement, job loss, perhaps pulling the trigger yourself to pack it in early, business succession, separation or divorce, death of a loved one, to name a few. We are most frequently, however, introduced to people when the transition they face is change of financial advisor. That's because an advisor can play a significant role, providing clarity, confidence, and wise counsel. And when this is missing, or when you've outgrown an existing relationship, this is when most often we get introduced and involved in working with new clients.
And more specifically, what are the career and business transitions, and how do they impact, or how are they impacted by financial goals?
Well, work is a large part of our lives. We often spend the majority of our time in our career or in business. And for people in a corporate setting, we find particularly those in their 50s and 60s are faced with corporate reorganizations, downsizing, and severance. And the question they face is, do I have enough? Often the answer is not quite. And therefore, the question is, what am I going to do with the rest of my working life? This is often a difficult transition since work is so important both financially and to our identity. There are a number of financial decisions that need to be made, like whether to remain in the pension or to take the commuted value if a pension is available. Existing plans may be inadequate, or they may need to be reworked. That's where we come in. And it's a time to get serious about making the most of the financial capital that's available. Very often we find that assistance is needed for a job search and to make new career opportunities. Increasingly, baby boomers near the end of their working lives are looking at the opportunity to reduce their work schedule or retire outright. It's an exciting time, a time when it's critical to get serious about finances. The focus on investments in this case needs to change from accumulating capital to income generation and preservation of capital, especially after inflation. Cash flow becomes a focus, where it's going to come from, keeping taxes to a minimum. Where there's a business, there are issues around business succession. What is the value of the business today? How can you increase the value of the business? Whether to remain in the business in a reduced capacity, whether to transition the business to family members or to the management team, or whether to sell the business outright. Tied up in all of this are tax, financial planning, and estate planning issues, business valuation, human resource issues, and very often we find issues around family. And navigating through all these issues successfully involves drawing on the expertise of a number of professionals from a variety of disciplines.
And personal and family transitions may be planned or unplanned. Can you take us through these examples?
Well, much has been said about the transfer of wealth from the parents of the baby boomers to the baby boomers. Parents who grew up in the 1920s or 30s know the value of a dollar and have accumulated capital in real estate, business, and financial assets. Boomers are in line to inherit this capital. Our experience with couples is that there's generally a division of labor with one of the two taking the lead with the finances. When there's a divorce or separation, the responsibility of finances are thrust upon a spouse very often who may be completely unprepared or unable to manage these, especially as they deal with a very painful situation. Death of a partner similarly brings finances to the forefront at a time when they may be the last thing you want to turn your attention to. And the last item noted here is our homes. Since our homes are often one of our largest assets, the sale of a home, perhaps to leave the city behind or to downsize, brings with it a sum of capital that requires attention and that needs to be incorporated into the family finances.
And William, how does this quote relate to our topic today?
Well, yeah. In preparing for battle, I have always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. It's very true that very few plans turn out as written. However, our experience is that going through the process of planning sets us up for success. You may have heard the story about a study that was done which tracked the graduates of an Ivy League business school over an expended period of years, where they compared the success of graduates in reaching their goals. What they found was that the graduates who wrote down a list of specific things they wanted to accomplish had significantly more success in their lives than those who didn't. Hence, the planning process is so vital.
Maybe you can take us a little deeper into that.
Well, two things that we strive to provide through our work are clarity and confidence. During life transitions, very often these two things are in short supply. As a result, it is often very difficult to move forward and to make smart decisions. The risk exists that emotions drive decisions during life transitions rather than thoughtful analysis and consideration of creative solutions to all the options open to you. These are occasions to take the time to make the right decisions using experienced advisors you can trust, advisors who have been down this road with clients many times before.
And what are some of the specific strategies for planning for the known or unknown transition points in our life?
You raise a good point, Matt. We do know that there are certain life transitions that we face. Others, of course, are unknown whether we'll face them or not. We know that we have to face our own mortality. As painful as it may be to think about, let alone talk about, our experience has shown that through smart planning with our wills, organizing our affairs, life insurance, and especially we found through communicating our wishes to our beneficiaries, we can make this transition less painful than it otherwise would be to the family we leave behind. Not everything is known. Many transitions are unexpected. That is why working with a trusted advisor is so helpful in helping prepare you for the bumps in the road.
And on that point, Gregory, can you take us through our professional network and how they work with us and our clients to help through these life-changing events?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Matt. One of the most common transitions is a career transition. They can come in inopportune times, or they can actually be planned if you're lucky. So we've set up a network where we have career strategy coaches and other advisors that can actually provide you with some very thoughtful and very, very time-tested advice on how to organize yourself, plan, and actually go out and execute a job search. Often we think we're well positioned to find work on our own, and an assumed 3-month job search, it turns into a 12-month job search. And that can cost somebody a lot of money, because not only you're not earning income, but you're probably drawing on savings as well. There's some other strategies or transitions that William touched on. Business succession, preparation for the sale of a business, and all the professionals that are needed there. You know, during the sale of a business, it's a very emotional time. Often one of the family members, or many of the family members, have put a great deal of time and sweat equity into the business. Hiring a professional, and we have a number of them that we deal with, to actually look at business succession strategies, how to maximize the price or value of your business, and actually dealing with all the different family members, because there's lots of competing interests at this time. And we find that it really works out better when you have those sort of professionals to help you. And of course, Matt, there's one of the roles that we serve, you know, wealth and insurance professionals. As William alluded to, during this time of transition, often you need a full review of your financial situation, perhaps a discussion on updating the strategy, and there may even be some education that's required. And dealing with Ellis and Associates and some of the other professionals that we have in our network can make sure that you start off the transition in a very, very good way, and that you're not making rash decisions, but rather making very thoughtful, methodical, and well thought out decisions. And I guess the final one that I'd like to talk about is personal and family support professionals. All of these transitions tend to come with a great deal of emotion. And having somebody to advise you and try to walk you down that path can really save a lot of stress. If we were looking at divorce, for instance, which is obviously a very difficult time, you can hire a lawyer, you can look at a collaborative lawyer, or you can look at a mediator. And each one of those strategies will have a different impact on how the couple might part, how the couple might parent, and how the couple might experience stress through the process. And I think that's a very important thing to be cognizant about or thoughtful about, and receive advice from a professional rather than just going to your friends. We also have accountants that can help, especially with somebody that doesn't have any financial training and could use some help just organizing their life, or maybe even paying their bills. Who knows? And then finally, and this is a more sensitive topic, but sometimes when you go through these transitions, you need somebody to talk to, whether we call it a coach, a therapist, or somebody that's really just helping you sort out your thoughts and understand what your fears and perhaps even your strengths are. This can be an invaluable service at this time, and it often is a bit of a catch-up on something you probably should have done throughout your life anyways.
Thanks so much, Gregory. And William, a question I have here is, how early should we be planning for a business succession or a family wealth succession strategy?
Well, every client is different, every business is different, every family is different. But if we just use a general rule in speaking with business owners who have gone through this and through the advisors that we use, we would generally suggest 5 years in advance as a minimum that you would be looking at a business succession plan, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done there in terms of valuing the business, seeing what are the key drivers, what can be done to improve the value of the business, and really to start that process that Gregory was talking about of communication within the family, because that is so critical. You know, you can have the greatest plan, greatest document put out there, but if you haven't communicated it properly, if it pulls the family apart, what value is it? And you talked about a family wealth succession strategy. Again, every family is the same, but I think the key there is the communication of the parents' wishes and getting input from the family too, in terms of what their suggestions would be, what their desires are.
Thank you, William. Thanks again to Gregory for joining us. And thank you for joining us today. And if you'd like to discuss today's webinar further, please feel free to contact us at 416-969-3190. Thank you, and I will now end today's session.